Today we're going to tackle a little bit of street photography. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Goldengrade podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Michael.
The audio engineer.
In the audio engineer. That's my title. All right.
And today we're going to talk a little street photography.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So how do you feel about street photography?
Well, I've done street photography like 5 or 6 times, out in the streets for events, for festivals, for our job. I've never done any personal stuff. It's kind of different. We're in a smaller-ish town.
I grew up in a small town.
Stop.
John Mellencamp, bud.
So it's gonna be different. And I know you want to take me out to New York.
I do. I want you to come to New York so bad. I know so many good little spots in New York.
I think you've done a lot more street photography than I have.
I wouldn't say I've done a lot, but I've done enough to where I've gotten decent at tackling architecture.
Yeah. I mean, you're more focused on buildings. So you have a couple of really nice prints in your house of some of your street photography. I am more focused on editorial stuff for journalism. So it's journalism's journalistic street photography of events and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've learned a lot, and I like it, but there's a lot to tackle there. So I'm excited to get into this.
No, absolutely. Right. My thing with street photography, I would say, is I have a problem.
What's your problem?
I take too many pictures of my girlfriend. It's an issue. It probably fills up half of my SD card when I go out to New York. The point of
street photography is to take pictures of strangers.
I know, candid moments, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So, bullet points for street photography.
Sure.
You ready to go over?
Yeah, let's go over.
Always have your camera ready.
Yeah.
You never know when a moment's going to strike, and you never know who's going to walk into frame, if you're going to capture that perfect sunset, in between the buildings. You always want to have your camera ready.
And I think a good tip for that is to, if you can, get a camera holster. Those things that they clip right on, and you can just whip them off immediately, or keep it on your lanyard. Yeah, they're awesome. Or keep it on your lanyard, something like that. And also, when you get to a place that you think you might be interested in, set your settings that you think that are roughly in the neighborhood immediately. And even if your camera, let your camera go to sleep, it's probably fine. But I would say just set your settings immediately, because there's so many times where I've been out there and I'm like, man, I just completely missed a moment because I just wasn't prepared. I had to turn on my camera, and then my settings were all jacked, so I had to get all those set, and then by the time it happened, it's already gone. So
yeah,
I would say get set as you can get. And obviously shoot in RAW so you can do some adjustments later. Cause
also keep it on servo.
Oh yeah, servo autofocus.
You want to make sure you capture in that moment, and that just having one shot when things can happen at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you can get that in focus.
But it's all just about keeping your camera ready. The thing with street photography is so many things can happen out of nowhere. You want to just be prepared and just be able to strike at a moment's notice. That's something I really like about the newer cameras, the mirrorless and stuff. They boot up so fast, and you can get to taking pictures immediately, and that's really helpful for street photography. When you when you see the inspiration come, you only have a split second to get to it. So
yeah. And so next bullet point, candid moments.
Yeah.
This is pretty much the essence, I would say, of street photography. Capturing strangers off gad.
Yeah.
Off gad. You wanna I love reflections. Getting strangers and reflections, getting cool. Buildings and reflections. It's so, I don't know if it's overused or if it's underused. I don't see it as much, but when I did see it, it was all over. Mm-hmm. But puddles, capturing a reverse picture of a building in a puddle.
Yeah, I think that was overused, and then it kind of dropped off. But there's still some creative ways you can use that. I think. I mean, with street photography in general, it's all about getting a real moment, and so of course you don't want them to see you really, but also you don't want to invade their privacy. So I would say to get a good candid moment, stay low profile. Don't be wearing flashy clothes. Don't be pointing your cameras in people's faces.
Also, don't look like a predator though.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to.
You don't want to if you're taking a picture of someone, don't follow them around.
Oh yeah, for sure. You should never follow somebody. I mean, if you
walk your own path, and if they're there, they're there. Please don't stalk people.
You can't force a moment, but also you need to act like you're supposed to be there. And just be a normal person. Yeah, I don't think you should be wearing a ski mask walking around. But also don't be wearing super flashy clothes, because if people are drawn to you, they're gonna be oh, what's that over there? They're gonna look at you. That's not gonna be a natural moment. So yeah, I mean, I would say keeping that low profile, and also just letting moments happen. Keeping distance as well is a nice way. And I think that like having a zoom lens really helps with that.
Oh yeah, having that focal range to like play with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you can get a little bit further away and not just like. And I think we talked about last episode stereotypes, and I mentioned I think people stereotype photographers as being bothersome and getting in the way and like taking up space on the street and shoving their camera in your face when you don't want to. So
that's like the guy trying to sell his mixtape in Times Square.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I mean,
I'm sure your music's good, but like. Don't follow me around with your mixtape.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you have to strike the balance of don't be afraid, and I'll talk about that later. But like, also, you know, don't be annoying about it because then you're gonna ruin the candidness, and that's gonna just like ruin the entire reason you're out there. But also, it's gonna make people mad. So
yeah, absolutely. Here's a little tip I found out from a friend who does street photography. Be careful what you do around banks.
Okay.
It's a very weird thing to think about, but if you are taking pictures like a lot outside of a bank, one of my friends actually had one of the employees at the bank walk up to him and told him to like basically like piss off because I get it. They don't know if
trying to break in or something.
Not break in, but like you could be like surveying the bank or not surveying. What's the word? Scoping out the bank. Yeah, they don't want that.
Okay.
But I get it.
I mean, I wasn't planning on taking any bank pictures anytime soon.
No, but like being around a bank and taking pictures.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah, I mean, I guess like that kind of comes into scenery too. Like, you can try to get like that variety of scenery and like move around in spaces as people would. Because if you stay in one spot the whole time, you're gonna seem really strange. And you're also just going to end up with a lot of pictures that are the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways.
So, have you ever taken any good pictures like graffiti?
I actually have. Now that you mention it,
I would consider that street photography. And I would love to hear your graffiti story.
That is actually a piece of photography. So actually, when I very first got hired, I wanted to practice more photography because I'd only done videos at that point. And so I took the camera out one evening after work, and I just went around town, took some pictures. And on top of the parking garage, brand new parking garage. It had only been there for maybe like
someone tagged.
Yeah, it was a tag. Well, it was a tag, but it was a smiley face. But it was done in red, and it was like the dripping.
Like was that Watchmen?
Yeah, and it's a super good photo. I really like it a lot, even now. I think that like I could have done better with it, and knowing what I know now, this is like
I'm sure it's still there.
Like 2 years ago. Yeah, it still is, but there's all sorts of tags around it too. Yeah. It's still a really nice parking garage, like well maintained and stuff. But there's tags, of course. There's tags, which I think looks cool. So, that's my first graffiti picture. But also, when I was in Korea. Actually, you know what? There's I have a lot more.
You have a lot more to say about this than you thought you did.
When I was in Korea 2 summers ago, we were driving on the coast of the island of Jeju, and there was this old abandoned warehouse that we stopped by in, and it was just like full of freaking graffiti everywhere. It was super amazing artwork.
That's awesome.
Just off the side of the coast, it's so beautiful.
Like
maybe I'll post
classy graffiti or like
good graffiti,
cool.
Really good. Like it was like
someone put the time and effort into it.
They set aside this area, so we took some really good photos in front of the graffiti.
Cool.
And then my alarm's going off. And then the other one is in Toronto. We were in Toronto last winter, about a year ago, and there's a place called Graffiti Alley. And
I feel like I've heard this.
This is just like I think 5 or 6 blocks in an alley, just full of graffiti. And where there's no buildings, they put up plywood, and there is some insane work, all like 5-story high, just like full building is the canvas. It's incredible stuff. So I took some graffiti pictures there as well. That's cool. Toronto is a really, really, really good city for street photography. I wish that I was there to take photos. I was there on vacation, so I tried to keep my camera in my bag as much as I could, but I couldn't help myself at Graffiti Alley. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't realize I had so much graffiti in me.
You have so much graffiti talk.
Maybe I have more.
Maybe we'll explore this later.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I love graffiti. It looks great. But anyways, what's up? What do you have with graffiti?
I have a little bit of graffiti. I forgot where it was. I think it's like right near Chinatown in Manhattan. But there's a picture of, well, not a picture, but there was a giant tag, I swear to God, 3-4 stories tall, of like a Hulk baby. It's like the Hulk's body with a baby's face.
Nice.
And it was like oddly satisfying.
Okay.
It was kind of cool.
All right.
But
do you have a picture of it?
I do have a picture of it.
Oh, I'd like to see the picture.
I'll show you it. But also, we do live in the small town.
Yeah.
There is skate parks.
Oh yeah.
And the skate park in particular that I think has really good like potential, Highland Park.
Yeah.
And they have some sick graffitis that like
it's a little bit of a sketchy area now.
Highland Park?
Yeah.
The whole skate park is tagged.
Highland doesn't have a skate park.
Not Highland. Jackson Morrow.
Jackson
Morrow. They have a whole skate park, and like literally from head to toe, the entire bowl is tagged.
That's really cool. You know,
and I love that.
One day it would be cool to go to a shoot there. Yeah.
I don't know anyone who skateboards. I mean, I used to, but like,
I'm not gonna drop in on that board.
No.
I'm gonna break my teeth.
Yeah.
Like my brother did when we were like 8.
Yeah, I can. I'll go down to double diamond on a snowboard, but I will not drop into a bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's so much more sketchy too. It's so much easier to break a bone. Anyways, if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. So another thing. Do you want to talk about layers of 3?
Layers of 3 in essentially in street photography, you want to kind of capture layers of 3. You want a foreground, a background, and a subject. That subject can be a building. That subject can be a person. But like getting that depth and that dimension really can like help out a photo.
Yeah.
At least in composition terms. Like capturing in front of a railing, getting that blurred out, having your photo, and then like a cool building in the back. You can add so many layers and dimension in street photography that some places you just can't because you don't have a foreground.
Yeah, so a lot of portraiture ends up being just a subject and background, which is fine. And that's one of the things that I think landscape and street photography in urban environments really benefit from this, is having something way off in the distance that's just a blur that just adds that, and that sometimes can be the sky, but not usually. You get your mid-ground, which can be where your subject is, and then you can have those. There's so many things you can put in front. There's street lights, there's garbage bins, there's building corners, all those sort of things that you can put in between, like to add so much depth to your subject. So, you're looking over my shoulder. What's going on?
I think my hamster's awake.
Is your hamster awake?
I hear him.
Chopper.
Okay, so a little background. My hamster sleeps 24/7.
He really does.
He does not stay awake. And I think he's awake, and I'm genuinely happy.
Oh, love to see that. Hey, he's joining us for the podcast.
Oh, Choppy Boy. He's a Golden Grade fan. Maybe we just need to record podcasts. That's how he'll come out.
So yeah, I also want to encourage you to play around with where those things are. So you were talking about putting your subject in the midground, right? You can also put your subject in the furthest front. Have your subject be the thing that's in focus. Have a midground, which is usually like the buildings behind them, and then include more buildings way further down the road or whatever, and that's your background.
Yeah.
And that stuff that's washed out. Those the car lights, the street lights, those sort of things that are really blurry.
Your layers of 3.
But just working in those, thinking about where those are, thinking about how they're positioned next to each other, can add a whole lot more depth to your photos. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, one last thing on street photography, at least for what we're talking about. I've been in a situation before where I was taking pictures and I kind of got caught in street photography, and they asked me like, "What are you taking a picture?" I'm like, I take street photos sometimes, and they asked me for my work, and like, it was just an interactive moment that I had with this random dude on the street.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. He was like, "Oh, those pictures are awesome," and it was just really inspiring. So like, I would say if you have like pre-work or whatever, just have it handy, because like,
have your website,
you never know who
Drive folder pulled up.
You never know who you're gonna meet.
Yeah, and that can go both ways, because if you get stopped by police or by security or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing here? Are you legit? Is that actually what you're doing?" You can actually show them a large body of work. Be like, "Hey, this is what I do." And in your case, it was a much more wholesome moment.
Yeah,
but I mean,
felt good. Hitting the feels.
Now, like I said earlier, I've done a lot of journalistic stuff. And people hate getting their photos taken in compromising situations, but a lot of the times it's like a food festival. You want to get pictures of people eating strawberries, and they don't want to be seen eating. So I've been having a whole hard time with that, and it's a real skill, and a mad respect to photographers for newspapers and stuff that are able to do that.
People yell at them like, "Hey, you don't have my permission to take my photo."
Yeah, people who are out publicly attending a public event will be so mad that you're taking your picture. And
legally,
like, hey,
you can take their photo.
Legally, you can, yeah. At least in the U.S., at least in our state, you can take a photo of anybody who's in a public space.
Yeah.
Now, and there's caveats there, but
if someone doesn't want their photo taken, just delete it. It's really not worth the hassle.
You should respect them, but that adds another level of it too, because when you're doing journalistic photography, you need to know who they are, because you're gonna put them in the newspaper, and you have to tell the people who are reading who they are. You need to say John Doe eats ice cream with his kids in the park, and you have to.
That sounds like a headline.
Yeah, you have to go. super engaging.
Super interesting.
But you have to go up and ask them for their name and stuff, and that's terrifying. So. I mean, my general tip is be really brave. The more confident you are, like, I am here to do this. This is my job. I'm here for a reason. And my confidence has grown exponentially over the last year when it comes to photography. Doing weddings has helped with that. You just be like, hey, it's my job to be here, you know? I'm going to do this because this is my job. And if somebody's mad, that's okay. I've never gotten any mean confrontations, but I have had a lot of people that have flatly refused to have their picture taken. And you know what? Respect it and move on. But the more confident you ask to be like, I am here to take photos, and I'm going to take these photos, and then you ask them, hey, it's okay if I use your photo? They almost always will say yes, and you just have to project. I don't care. You just have to project that confidence, you know? Yeah. So even if you're doing it subtly, do it like you mean it. Act like you're supposed to be there, and then you'll be all right.
So we kind of went over this first question. This is from Reddit user TwistyVine34. What should I have with me as a street photographer? I would say main things, extra SD cards, because you never know. Yep. I would say maybe a raincoat for your camera, depending on what weather you're shooting in. Extra batteries, always.
Yeah.
You said holster.
Yeah.
And pretty much have like a portfolio of pictures already. But I would say those are essentially what you need.
Something else I might add to that is variable ND. Just because there are going to be situations where you really like your settings or whatever that you got, but VNDs give you a little, especially mine gives me like, I think 10 stops or 8 stops of range.
Oh, wow.
Very, very high range, which is why it's more expensive. But that allows you to really go from very dark to very light. And if you are out there and you really like your shutter speed, you don't want to touch that, but you might be in a different situation. You don't want to mess with your ISO. VND might be a nice way to kind of be able to do that on the fly in a much more smooth way, especially if you're doing street videography. That might be a lot more important.
Oh, absolutely.
But even for photography, I've really enjoyed the moments when I've had my VND, even when I'm just taking photos.
Yeah, and I would say in street photography, a variable ND filter is good to have because you might want to do long exposures in a city.
Yeah, that's true, for sure.
Those are huge. A lot of people do them with the light trails and everything.
You need a VND usually.
Yeah, you can't screw around with your shutter speed the way you can on like a portrait and like, oh, it's a little dark. I mean, it's a little light. I'll just make my shutter speed 1/400,000.
Yeah,
you can't just bump that up.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
So that's street photography.
Yeah, awesome.
We got questions.
Let's do it.
Wait. Well, we just went to questions.
We already went to questions, but that one was more.
It roped so hard into like what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, question number 2 from Tadpole Reject. How do you build your online folio?
Well,
folio.
It's a fancier way of saying that. Pinky up sort of situation. Now, I think that they're kind of. I don't know what they were asking. I think
there could be 2 different answers.
How do you build your body of work, and how do you build a website? We're not sponsored by a website creating software, but if they want to reach out, we would be.
I'd love to be sponsored by Wix.
I think you just sneezed and said Squarespace wrong?
No. No.
You mean Squarespace?
No.
Okay, you use Wix. I use Squarespace. I also just like built them from scratch in HTML. Honestly, I will say if you maybe go to like a learning software like online, like YouTube, Skillshare, something like that, I'm sure there is a HTML CSS crash course that will allow you to build your own website for free. That will be perfectly functional it's so easy to get images onto a simple HTML site.
Just for a photo portfolio, I don't know if it's really worth it to all that learning.
Well, that's the thing. If
you're not into it.
That's it. You know what though? I just literally last week I built a portfolio using Squarespace, and the domain plus the registration through Squarespace is going to be like $30 a month.
Why was it so expensive? Because
it costs $15 to use a Squarespace subscription. It costs $10 a year. Sorry. Okay, not quite. It costs $15 to $20 for a Squarespace subscription a month. And then, I think maybe $20 actually. And then it's the $10 a year registration for the domain, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But you could just be paying $10 a month.
Well, you got to pay for the domain regardless.
Yeah, you could just be paying $10 a month for the domain.
Year.
Or $10 a year for the domain, and that's it. And like maybe a couple dollars for the hosting fee. But with Squarespace or Wix, you're paying a recurring monthly fee just to have it through their site. And it was very easy, but honestly, like this semester I took web design, and I am confident, incredibly confident. In fact, I am 110% sure, because I've already done something more complicated than this. I could build the website that Squarespace built for me, because it was so simple, in a couple of hours, because it's literally just putting images, and that's what you want. I would say, yeah, just learn to build a website. That being said, Squarespace and Wix are both great website builders.
I think we should have a whole episode dedicated to portfolios.
Now that we're saying that, yeah, there's a lot more.
Wix, Squarespace, and HTML. we'll do that.
There's a lot more to consider when it comes to actually what to include in there, what kinds of work, how many, what styles, like what variety, how do you project your image, and how you speak through your portfolio. Which
if it's a business,
yeah, exactly.
There's so many things to it. This actually has to be its own episode.
Yeah, but look, just to finish answering the question, yeah, we can talk about build a website and throw your pictures up there, but also be consistent in taking tons of photos in lots of different circumstances and just start making work. If you're talking about how to actually build out, like flesh out your portfolio, look at all the types of photography there is, recognize the gaps, and do everything that you can to fill those gaps and practice them until you have a picture that you're really satisfied with, and or video or whatever, this is whether you're a graphic designer or anything, and just try to fill all the niches that you can and see what you like, see what you don't like. And then once you've been consistent and you've built out your work, you can kind of make a personal thesis about what is my brand, what do I represent, and then you can choose the photos selectively about who you are. And then then there you go. There's your portfolio. Anyways.
Awesome. So, this is from Reddit user NIIIIIIIICO. Nico. 73. What
right.
is your best website to buy secondhand equipment, I'm guessing? So, just in general, lenses, cameras.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot here. Do you want? Well, I think you have a few. Do you have?
I do. Personally, I use eBay.
eBay
for most of my stuff. I think the people who sell things on eBay, at least photographers, I've never had an issue.
Yeah.
eBay may be sketchy for other things. Photography, not as much in my
in
my experience.
Vintage lenses are really good on eBay. There's a lot of good vintage lenses.
There's so many vintage lenses I want, but we'll go into that.
Yeah, I think that's a different time.
But Adorama.
Adorama is another great reseller of used gear for
Facebook
photography.
Marketplace.
Really?
You can get things.
I've never seen that. No, I got my camera, my Canon R, off of KEH, and that was a great experience. They have a great grading system. I really trust them, and they have some good stuff. KEH.com. There's MPB as well. MPB is another. Why are these all 3-letter acronyms? I don't know what's up with that.
eBay's 4.
B&H.
B&H.
B&H also does use gear as well. I've had a little bit less success with
B&H is a little more
gear.
expensive than the rest, though.
Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive. They don't like you have deals, but also, I mean, it's B&H. You're never gonna have a problem with them. It's gonna be 110% consistent.
Adorama pretty much is pretty good too.
Yeah, Adorama as well. So yeah, that's the list. I think like eBay, MPB, KEH, B&H. Man, this is hard to say. And Adorama.
Depending where you live, Facebook Marketplace. I mean, in a small town like where we live, it's few and far between how many people are selling like lenses and stuff. But if you live in like a big city like New York, chances are.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's lenses, cameras all over.
And also check your local camera store. I mean, Roberts in Indy. That's the closest one here. They got you stuff, and there's renting stuff. You can always rent stuff before you want to go down and buy it. So yeah. I would say check your local camera store. A lot of the times you can find something interesting there that you might not be able to find online.
Cool. All right, so we got news.
News you can use.
News you can use?
Yeah, that's what it is. I renamed the segment just now. Executive decision.
Okay, news you can use.
Let's not do that.
Nextridge announces world's fastest CF Express Type B memory cards. The B1 Pro Series has claimed a maximum read speed of 1950 megabytes per second. That's quick.
This is very fast.
It's very, very quick.
Very fast.
Very, 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 very quick. I'm guessing most people who will use CF Express cards pretty much know what they are.
Yeah, for sure.
In the lower grade, like amateur, intermediate, you don't use them on. Most of the cameras don't have them, but
that's true.
I think the R5C has it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
but it's more of a cinematic. You don't need it for photos.
Oh, for sure.
It's definitely not for mostly photos. Video.
But I mean, this is kind of. I don't know if it annoys me or it gets me excited, because this is just emblematic of the trend we're seeing right now in tech, where just data rates are just skyrocketing. And I think I said this before, but I'm not sure it's worth it. I mean, if you're actually, imagine how quickly you're going to fill up. If you're doing, that's effectively 2,000 megabytes a second.
And they're smaller capacities than hard drives.
Yeah.
Not hard drives,
these
SSDs.
aren't going to be massive. You're going to be filling these up in minutes.
Yeah.
And I guess there might be a camera out there that is really worth it, but also most people are consuming these things, you know, on their phones, on their medium-sized monitors and TVs. Is it actually worth it? Unless you're really like shooting for IMAX or something. I don't know if it's worth it, man. I don't know.
I mean, any YouTube content, any kind of like content creator content similar to this, I don't think you really need more than 1080. 4K is nice for cropping if you need it, but overall, like 1080 is like it's totally usable.
I just realized, my bad. The read speed is 1950. The write speed is a meager 1,800 megabits per second.
Oh yeah, no, it's not even worth it then. Who needs that?
Absolutely.
And you're missing that 100. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean it's basically garbage at that
point.
No,
it's
is that
stupid.
Megabytes a second or megabits?
Megabits.
Okay.
It's stupid fast though.
Yeah, it's insanely fast.
There's no. I mean, it's really cool that it exists, but for most of the people watching this podcast aren't going to be like seasoned professionals.
Yeah, it's just interesting to take note of that.
It's just interesting how like read speeds are going up. Like say you have probably in our market someone who has a Blackmagic, possibly. Blackmagic can write directly to a Samsung SSD.
Yeah.
A Samsung SSD transfers at about 2,000.
Yeah,
so
but
like
the max data rate that a Blackmagic, if you're shooting a 6K Pro, if you're shooting a Blackmagic 6K Pro and you're shooting 6K RAW, max bitrate, I think the max write speed is like 900.
So you don't even need something that high.
Or something. It's not. I don't even think it exceeds 1,000, or if it does, it's not that much. But for me, I never used a bitrate that was like larger than 650 on that camera. So I don't know. I just think that this is just like. It's obviously a very niche audience. Obviously, we're not the target demographic for that. But it's also like, man, and I just don't know that you're going to see that big of a difference if you're actually writing files that big.
That's true. All right. So you ready for the Would You Rather?
Go for it.
Would you rather have a $10,000 budget for camera and lenses or lighting and audio?
That's going to disappear real fast for cameras and lenses. That is going to be...
You want lighting and audio?
You know, I think I might.
I'll give you 1,000 in the other category.
What am I starting with?
I'll give you 1,000 in the other category.
Okay, oh, I see. So I get 1,000. Oh gosh. And
because you wanted to go audio.
I want to go audio.
But now you can't go audio.
I'm immediately thinking audio. You know, I'm gonna say. If I was gonna make a small film and I had 1,000 for one and 10,000 for the other, I would spend 10,000 on the cameras and the lenses.
Yep.
Because you can get a good camera that way.
You can get
and all the lenses you
decent
need for a project.
lighting for 1,000.
And you can grab a decent audio setup for 500 used. You can get a good phantom powered like shotgun mic or whatever and a field recorder, and then you can grab 2 light panels that'll get the job done.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like the lowest bar is actually pretty low. For decent audio and lighting, whereas cameras, I would really rather have something nice. However, if I was gonna say really splurging, if I already have my Canon R and
You're
lenses
going lighting
and stuff,
and audio.
I'm going
I already
lighting and
knew
audio,
that.
110%. Get a couple really powerful lights with some huge soft boxes. And
but the R6 Mark II.
Yeah, I know, but
the R6 Mark II, I could do it so much with $1,000.
The leap between no lighting and $10,000 of lights and audio versus the leap from R to an R6 Mark II is not as big, I don't think. So that's what I'm.
You're going audio and lighting?
No, I'm going.
You're going camera.
Assuming we're starting from nothing.
Okay.
All right.
I agree. Camera and lenses.
I know you agree.
I absolutely agree.
I know you agree.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and we will catch you next week.
All right. See you guys.